Welcome back to some professional StarCraft 2 from the biggest tournament of 2020. IEM Intel Extreme Masters Katowice, the highlight tournament of the ESL Electronic Sports League Pro Tour. We have a qualifying match from the offline qualifier, which is a fancy way of saying open bracket, where only one of the two best German players will survive. Well, arguably two best. We'll find out who's closer to that here. But instead of just your normal, boring, slow-paced observer camera commentary, instead, we'll be looking through the eyes of these professional gamers, no matter how stoic or colossal in size they might be. But the perspective in the top left and in the blue, as well as the Terran, just giving us the camera locations back and forth. It is Big Gabe, Heromarine. And on the other side of things, the wall, D-Mauer, the Protoss player. It's showtime. Both these players known for, well, they're essentially some of the most standard players of their race, in or out of Korea, and obviously out of Korea. But like, Heromarine kind of sets the definition of what standard is in many matchups. He's part of the Terran players that do that, and then there are Terran players that do something completely different. But he's definitely on the more standard side of things. And Showtime, while all Protosses nowadays will throw in a cheese or a proxy or something like that, he's called the Wall for a reason. And it's not because he's out of Berlin, but instead because his defensive capabilities are almost unrivaled. And he's comfortable defending things like the multi-pronged attacks his counterpart is well known for putting out. Protoss versus Terran is potentially, I didn't even notice until recently. It just seems so many exciting matches come out of this matchup. Both these players who have fought in some of the Open Cups as well, and just in general. But Protoss versus Terran is in a pretty exciting state right now. Of course, everybody has opinions on strategies and units and overall metagame, but I don't think you can deny, as a spectator, it is exciting. Blank is the star for Showtime. We do have the production tab up. Of course, these players in-game do not see anything but the vision. That they have to guess what supply their opponent is at, what they're producing. There are ways of narrowing it down, like, for example, setting that Adept shade in and seeing the barrack still has a reactor on it. It's not for a large amount of Hellions. This means, and he also saw a singular Hellion, this means it is likely to be a more Marine-oriented play. It looks like, oh, the Hellion, but the Shade's chasing it. He's going to run right past the Reaper. It's unclear who's going to come out of this micro-exchange. He gets the Reaper, but the Hellion gets the Adept. An interesting trade. Let's flip back to Hero Marine, who's lining up a Whittle Mine drop. Just two Whittle Mines, starting a third command center behind. He hasn't seen the third Nexus out of Showtime yet. Of course, he may have played him more than any other player. They literally played in the ESL Open Cup Finals. I want to say they played twice. I think they played each other in general throughout the year. But he's essentially relying on Showtime being relatively passive. There's going to be Blink. It's a 2-gate Blink play. And while he hasn't seen the third Nexus yet, Heromarine has enough Marines at home that he can defend most things but a committed all-in. It is a little bit of a calculated risk, though. Showtime sees the medevac, but that also shows that Stalkers are at home. He doesn't have to worry about a super forward push at the moment. A couple more barracks on the way. That third command center, I'll stress, is pretty early, but Heromarine doesn't have an exact bead on Showtime's Nexus. Raven is complete. Anti-armor missile, interference matrix, both give you a lot of options, as well as potentially just straight up auto turret harassing the probes, but both give you a lot of options against larger Protoss armies. He actually caught a glimpse of something. I don't know if he noticed on the minimap, but I believe that was the first observer coming in out of Showtime. But now Heromarine looking to line up an attack. He's got the Widowmine drop in the back. He's got the attack at the front. He's got the Raven towards the natural. And Showtime is going to have to react to all of these things nearly simultaneously if Heromarine executes it well. Otherwise, he risks losing a significant portion of his economy or just his army straight up. All right. In comes the Widowmine drop. Meanwhile, Stalker's at the front. Drop in the main. Sieges up the tank. Showtime not reacting at the front. No auto turrets at the natural, I don't think yet. Pretty big hit. 6 probe kills is the total. Raven using that little high ground in order to move out. The Raven was not targeting probes, but the push. Now, with this gateway count, and Heromarine gets out with the first medevac. So, decent damage, and most importantly for Heromarine, he didn't lose any key units, but I may have spoken too soon, that tank. But suddenly the rest of the units come through. No charge yet, but beautiful force field. What looked to be a clean getaway from Heromarine is becoming a lot messier. Still hasn't lost any tanks yet, but that's about to change. Both tanks will die. Immortal shows up. Heromarine going to trade damage out. Down goes the Immortal. Most of the rest of the gateway units down as well. Drops a Widowmine in. Won't find any probes with that, maybe one, but he's going to continue across either way. We're going to go over to the Showtime cam, the Protoss player. And that was all before, so it looked like he got the jump on Heromarine's army, which is ideal, but Heromarine actually had enough units, and with his target fire, and the Raven came back to help. That was a very important part of that. Adding like 1 or 2 auto turrets into that fight is what made the difference. It made it so he was able to trade those tanks for an Immortal and most of the ground army. But Showtime now has to play defense. He's got a Warp Prism on the other side. He sees a push coming. He knows medevacs are a serious threat right now, and he can't be engaging into Widowmines without overwhelming forces. Warp Prism looking to come in. He knows the map is dark and full of Terrans. Moves an observer towards the front. That Bio army is the most direct threat. The observer will actually spot it. Comes in. Widowmine counter... not Widowmine. Warp Prism counterattack. They both start with W, and I'm bad with words. Warp Prism still working. Anything he can do to keep Heromarine off his back until he finishes up more upgrades and maybe gets a better unit composition, as well as, of course, killing SCVs. But a triple drop comes in before Showtime can do too much to react. Auto turret gonna help box it out. There's not that much bio here to deal with. Heromarine may be overextending a little bit, but wait, the third. If I'm Showtime right now, I'm worried about what's about to hit my third. He knows that some of the units are back at home to deal with the Warp Prism counterattack, but the vision on the map is very lacking, and Showtime needs to deal with that. He has the upgrades finishing up. Heromarine, kind of an ill-fated drop into the natural. He might not have expected Showtime to have an observer there because he was routinely sending a Raven through that area earlier, or maybe he just wanted to see if Showtime was out of position. Either way, we can see Heromarine has a 40 supply lead. He's really been pumping out these bio units, and he hasn't lost that much. Like, the Prism won't die, which is incredibly annoying, but it hasn't really done much damage either. The observers are moving to give vision of the important parts of the map here. The Prism finally being targeted, but Heromarine doesn't get it. Showtime holds on to it. Oh, with the recall, there's no Vikings out to deal with it. Colossi halfway done. +1, +3. Showtime really focused on those defensive upgrades, the armor. But wait, in the natural! Showtime didn't notice, and that's 10 worker kills. Oh my god, and just one more parting shot. We're gonna go back to Big Gabe. who's looking to lay down a potential killing blow. He still has a supply lead, but his upgrades aren't incredible. He's just now getting +2, +1. He has a significantly higher, he has 20 more army supply. There's not enough Colossi to be super dangerous yet. He just did a lot of economic damage, and that concave is beautiful. The 4th bay is going to be isolated and more than likely killed. There's a lot of energy on these Ravens, but at the same time, it's almost dead itself. Meanwhile, Showtime on the counterattack. Heromarine, he wasn't really rallying his... I take it back. He was rallying reinforcements. He killed the 4th base. Objective gaming and objective complete. But that Warp Prism won't stop. It was recalled, but it's back on the warpath. The Vikings will finally take it out, but he's kept Heromarine distracted for enough time to at least survive this push, and he's killed 12 SCVs with it. 23 to 19 worker kills if we take stock of it, 67 to 63, so they're both pretty on top of that worker production.
Mineral field depleted.
Both players taking chunks out of the other. Showtime, still, it feels like he's buying time, but that time might pay off, as now his Robo Bay has come online. We've seen this since the, especially the upgrade or the buff to Ghosts, where they have a larger EMP radius upgrade, enhanced shockwaves. A lot of Protoss players have entirely avoided the Templar tech, the Archons, at least until much later on, instead focusing on gateway units and robo units to kind of negate the advantage that those Ghosts can give. Oh, but now Heromarine, wait, what was that? Dark Templar have joined the field. And by Templar tech, I mean High Templar, not the Scythe Cape boys. There is a Raven on the field, but Ravens don't solve a problem with Dark Templar on multiple bases at a time. A lot of kills coming through. Showtime has turned the tables, I feel, here on Heromarine. And now Heromarine has to, one, be concerned about more tech on the way. He spotted the Colossi before, which is why we have the Vikings, and Vikings not terrible on the ground against things like Stalkers and Immortals. The Ghosts have come out. Something to deal with that Gateway army. +2. +2 armor has completed, but +3 armor for Showtime. Heromarine scans ahead, spots the Stalkers. He still has the Raven as well. I'm sure there are plenty of scans. And Disruptors have arrived on the field. The danger ball's here. An anti-armor missile comes through. Ooh. Nice split there from Heromarine. And oh no, 2 Ghosts on the secondary one. More fadeaways. How many more Disruptors? The Vikings looking for an angle. How is that Raven still alive? Finally it dies. Anti-armor missile. Dorito dusting over the army. The Disruptors are coming forward. Heromarine had a beautiful spread to deal with this, but another Disruptor shot comes through. It's a big chunk, and suddenly Heromarines' army has no longer the critical mass. Wait, reinforcements have arrived. But are they in time, or are they late to the party? They're a little bit too late. The Disruptors, while not finding it looked like a game-winning hit, the chunks they bit off left Heromarine with just not enough. It looked decent to start that fight, but there was just too much splash damage spread throughout. And with those charge lots and +3 armor, if you don't land the EMPs to at least get rid of the shields, they don't die easy. They don't die quick, especially if you don't have Liberators to help out, or a whole bunch of Widow Mines. And there's not Liberators, there's not Widow Mines, which means those armor upgrades are very helpful here. And also, there's nothing to really zone out or slow down the Disruptors as well. The Ghosts, oh, Showtime getting caught on the ramp. That's a whole lot of Disruptors. He's just going to go ahead and recall them out, which leaves a chunk of the Gateway army in an uncomfortable position. A Ghost microed back, desperately trying to live. That one Ghost, but Showtime retargets a charge lot. Both players, a little microcosm, I guess is a very appropriate word of all the things happening right now. But here comes Heromarine. He still has the supply lead. We'll shift back over to Showtime and see how he handles what is becoming a more desperate attack. It's tilted around. The sheer amount of Robo Bay units coming out has kept Heromarine, and honestly, it feels like Heromarine should have been going Liberators earlier, ranged Liberators. Give a lot more options, but suddenly Terran on both sides. But the counterattack, the Prism's so important. He needs to do damage of his own if he's going to be taking it already. A Colossus pops out into a world of death and destruction. The Bio army is still working through. SCVs are dying, but at the same time, Heromarine is stimming forward. A couple disruptors, maybe looking for a shot. Showtime is losing a lot, but the Blink Stalkers blink in and help deal with this, and Heromarine not looking! The double shot, 1-2, a big hit, takes all the wind out of the sails of Big Gabe. That secondary army was what was really keeping Showtime at bay. It was what was keeping him from committing to dealing with the drop in the main. It was what was doing damage to everything that was out of position. But suddenly 2 disruptors show up with the 1-2 punch across the face. And Heromarine is beaten back and still has to find a way to deal with this army. That's how many disruptors is that? He's got 7 disruptors. He's at the point where he can almost constantly have a disruptor shot going out. It doesn't make it easy for a Terran who doesn't have things like ranged liberators. EMP across the disruptors, but they do have plenty of range. The shots will come out. You gotta be careful they don't hit your charge lots more than the bio units. Another one! Big chunk at the front. DT is still going to work. Both these players, 400 plus actions per minute. And almost all of them are effective as there's so much going on the map constantly. One mistake, EMP hitting some of the Nexus, but also that army. Does he have the enhanced shockwaves? He does have the EMP upgrade. Showtime, another fadeaway shot. Takes a chunk, but this bio, if there is no splash damage, this bio army starts tearing through everything. There's still a counterattack. Showtime on top of it. Both these players. 194 to 160 supply. Heromarine, eats another set of hits, and that means the Blink Stalkers and Gateway units are able to overrun the rest. Another round of charge lots coming through. Templar Archives is done, but we still have no hint that he's interested in using it. The disruptor count is still quite high. He's looking at 6 of them. Heromarine is still sticking on that bio army. Ghosts, Marines, Marauders, and Medevacs.
Upgrade complete.
The worker counts are 67 to 66. Heromarine not able, the closer, Showtime has not really been able to get to 200 supply this game. This is the closest he's been. And that does not bode well for a Terran who's continually focusing on aggression. Once Showtime has the numbers, he has the supply and the efficiency with the disruptors and now Archons on the field. Heromarine no longer has the advantage of units to outmaneuver the Protoss army. Well, a little bit of outmaneuvering here. As a drop comes in, he spots the DTs warping in, pre-scans them. EMPs are good, but that is 4 medevacs, and some of them were pre-bruised. 8 probes go down, but Showtime still. He's got 58. 100, nearly 100 workers have died, and in most games, you'd be pointing that out constantly. 100 workers in this game, but they almost seem incidental because there's so much other action. Let's go to the big game big game hunter, big game cam, as he continues to look for options. Showtime continuing to whittle them down.
We could use some help here.
EMP is on the Stalkers as they blink forward, but Showtime's he's maxed out, which means he no longer has to be so fearful with those Stalkers. There's 12 Ghosts on the field, but Ghosts not a particularly effective counter to Disruptors or Colossi. They're good against charge lots, though. They're actual just straight-up DPS on top of the EMPs. The thing is, without any Liberators here to help hold a position, or Widow Mines not the be-all, end-all. Liberators would definitely be a better option. He's struggling. He's got nothing out on the field. Showtime has established a 5th base, where his 5th base is now under fire. Down it goes. A big hit. A few Ghosts clipped off. Suddenly the supply plummets. 20 SCVs with it. Another fadeaway shot. Not going to find the mark. Heromarine has one last attack, but this... if all the ones before it weren't able to lay down a killing blow, This one seems desperate at best. The disruptors hit from the low ground, but there's still 2 Colossi. Another disruptor shot. That's it. He taps it out. GG. Heromarine falls in game 1. Showtime. The wall does not crumble. And instead, he holds strong. I do think, and it's really hard in a game like that where you're relying constantly. You're 100% on I can build this army up more quickly than the Protoss, and I can move it around more quickly than the Protoss. But the closer the Protoss gets to 200 supply, the more they stabilize their economy, the worse the army gets. It's not meant to be fighting an even army supply, but instead, well, that's what he found himself doing. The Disruptors, a very punishing unit. They're not easy to use well. Even though even the Gold Leaguers out there could have a few highlight reel worthy hits. But when they do land, there's not much more that there's like in StarCraft 2. We don't have very many XXX 420 MLG triple no scope headshots XXX highlight reels. But those disruptors are the best chance of letting 2007 YouTubers have the bodies hit the floor. And for better or worse, Showtime landing the hits he needed. Game 2 is on Eternal Empire, the most macro of maps in the map pool. Heromarine playing that very mobile Terran style. I stick with it. Like, if you asked me, and in equal parts, 1, why would you ask me? And 2, well, now that you asked, ranged liberators is my answer. Like, what could Heromarine have done? Ranged liberators. Now, the problem with ranged liberators is it slows down your medevac production. They're relatively expensive. They're not a direct counter. So, like, while you're building up a liberator count, you're vulnerable. Like you saw, Showtime was not slacking on the counterattacks. His prism, it wasn't like particularly advanced, but he kept that prism alive, and it was a constant thorn in Heromarine's side. You kind of got to slow the game down and go to those liberators if that's the direction you want to take. But Heromarine seemed... I don't think he built a single liberator in that match. Which... it felt a little stubborn by the end. But understandable at the same time. It was a unit composition and style that Heromarine was relying on, just battering down Showtime before he could stabilize and max out. Now, does it happen again? Showtime opting for the Stargate opener instead of the Twilight this time around. I'm not sure. Like this has become a trend. Is the, I want to say not third but fourth pylon? Is it third or fourth pylon? I think fourth pylon is now like a starport unit scouting pylon. As almost no top tier Terran players will go for a bio push. It's almost always like 90% plus of the time. If they're expanding, they're gonna go for the 111, the barracks, the factory, and the starport. So you can pretty much rely on something from a starport early. The adept just kind of walks in and sees the Widow Mine, which is nice. Oracle is on the way. The Reaper, we're going to go to the Heromarine cam. I'm actually going to... the Big Gabe cam. I was just thinking the Big Gabe cam. Brought to you by Mountain Dew. Do it bigger. Like, and that's what we'll go with for now. I'm not sure if he saw the Oracle here, but he did lose. He did lose the Reaper. Oh, the Oracle spotted. Cyclone is on the way. A revelation comes through. The Viking is not. It is actually a very solid probe harass unit, because a couple years ago the Viking got a buff to its to its ground attack. Like when it's dropped to the deck, it does more damage to mechanical units. Probes and SCVs are mechanical units. So are Stalkers and Sentries, and even technically Immortals and obviously Robo units. So that once that Viking is no longer a big part of the army, it can be used to do potentially a lot of damage to a probe line. If left unchecked, it only takes 2 hits to kill a probe, so the Viking can kill a mineral line in, I don't know, like 15 seconds or so. Cyclone pokes around. It looks like Showtime was interested in going for 3 Adept Oracle pressure, which if Heromarine doesn't go for turrets, or if he's caught switching up his production, like switching around his add-on, doesn't have that many units, could potentially do a lot of damage. But he's more than ready. Well, he wasn't more than ready. He was a regular amount of ready. It looks like either the Oracle or the Phoenixes killed that Cyclone. Showtime continuing to commit to Stargate units as opposed to stopping with the Oracles. And Heromarine caught a little off guard, loses the Viking, loses the Cyclone. Another orbital command on the way. Factory gonna drop down. Reactor will be produced. That will more than likely be for the starport.
Base is under attack.
Heromarine has shown a... Oh, wait. He already has a starport building a reactor. So we could actually be looking at some Widow Mines this time around. The Phoenix is doing a pretty good job. Heromarine already has a 3rd command center. Now, Heromarine doesn't know it, but so does Showtime, and that's kind of to be expected. That was very nice, actually. So, I didn't even realize, I didn't notice, but obviously Heromarine did. A stasis ward was there to block the command center. And if you just walk into it, the stasis unit then continues to block the command center for a time. But Heromarine came into it from an angle that allowed him to land his command center. So just the little details here. In comes the Raven. Now this Raven is essentially dead. This is a suicide Raven. Because the Phoenixes will come back and the Phoenixes will kill it. He's target firing down probes. Does he have enough for a 3rd auto turret? Well, there you go. But that has opened up potentially an opportunity for the bio attack. He spots the gateway explosion, has already completed a Twilight Council of Forge, so it's not going to be a big Stargate play. The Phoenixes were the end of it, as they usually are. Widow Mines being added into the composition. I believe in the production tab we saw Showtime just finished a Colossus. But Heromarine still mostly in the dark about the depth of the unit composition from Showtime so far. You can take guesses, but they have to just be educated guesses. Meanwhile, Armory on the way. This time, Heromarine, 70 SCVs. He's lost none of them. This is great Terran production. He's going to be looking to deny a 4th base. His 3rd base is already fully online. Let's see how Heromarine looks to do damage, because all of his forces are concentrated on this one attack. He doesn't have a drop split off towards the natural. He doesn't have any sort of any harass or counterattack. It's all about this. Showtime expanding to the top. Revelation on the first set of Widow Mines. The upgrades, just +1 armor on the charge lots, whereas there's +1 attack on the Marine Marauder. So not a terrible situation for Big Gabe. He did spot the Colossi. Vikings are already in production. Ship weapons level 1 begins. 4th command center is halfway done for Heromarine, where Showtime, his 4th base, was beaten down. Still putting the pressure on. Another reinforcing group of units. Once again, Heromarine finds himself at a significant supply advantage. It's just that coming across the map takes time, and Showtime's unit composition is reliant on cost efficiency the more he goes into those robotics bay units. 3 Colossi now, but Heromarine splitting up his forces. The tank still holding position. Guardian Shield helping out. Heromarine diving towards the 3rd. It looks like some of his units were caught by a beautiful stasis ward from Showtime, though, predicting and preventing this deadly backstab. And suddenly, Heromarine is beaten back. He's able to pick up. There are no Blink Stalkers, as he did open up at the Stargate, and going straight into Robotics Bay and all that charge load tech means he didn't really have the oh my god, the 1-2! What a timing! Showtime tees them up. They have to watch as the Disruptor Nova closes in. But there is no escape. The timing, impeccable from Showtime.
SCVs under attack.
Heromarine suddenly, once again, here to contend with the Disruptors. He's got a Ghost Academy on the way, but no Liberators in production.
Mineral field depleted.
He's coming in towards the natural. He's got a few Vikings with this as well. Meanwhile, the 4th base is under attack too. Most of Showtime's forces are here, but some charge lots will try to hold on to the 4th. Are there enough medevacs to make the difference? The upgrades are +2 armor and +1 attack for Showtime to just 1-1 for Heromarine. So again, even against gateway units, it's a tough trade. Blink is not done. The Stalkers will still get one of these. We're going to switch to the Showtime cam as he consolidates his forces, and now that he's held all sides of this attack relatively strongly, he shut them down. He's done some damage to the units that showed up on his side, and now he's looking to deal damage to units on the other. A little disjointed chasing down the Bio Army. Actually, the Disruptor's all fire. Good split from Heromarine. He catches 1, he catches 2, he gets 3 for 3. Well, actually, there's a 4th one, but for someone who was scrambling, getting those Disruptors is pretty nice. It's only 4 Marines! Showtime kind of overextending here. He brings 3 Colossi back via recall for 4 Marines in a medevac. So, well, the real damage is being dealt by all of the units that he isn't microing right now. He didn't look at that counterattack at the natural for quite a while, but it did 21 SCV kills of damage. The only downside for Showtime of that happening is that he was paying so little attention, he might not realize he did so much economic damage. Now Heromarine been on top of that SCV production, so losing 20 SCVs is but a small speed bump in his, well, in his production of units. He does have to replace those SCVs. He is down by 30 supply, but it's going to be a little tough for Showtime to realize the position he's in. Of course, maxing out. What else are you going to do? You're maxed out. Let's go. It's time to go. Every second you waste from here is giving Heromarine more time to deal with this army composition. Showtime intimidated by the potential of dual-pronged attacks. Recall is still on cooldown here. It feels like Showtime playing relatively timid for his position. He's getting both flavors of Templar right now, the dark and the high kind. +3 armor is on the way, and +3 attack has begun. Even some ghosts in this drop. Heromarine not stingy with the ghosts. No Liberators, but definitely not stingy with the ghosts. The drop picks up a handful of probes, but the attack at the 4th. He scans the army. Heromarine doesn't want to get stuck out of position. Showtime rotates around to defend. Oh, the ghosts come in, but the EMPs land. It looks like the ghosts were forgotten, and that will be haunting Heromarine. Like, the shields will come back eventually if you don't actually have any sort of follow-up. So a handful. Oh, this army just waiting on the top of the ramp. Kind of an awkward exchange here. Some EMPs coming through. Heromarine finding damage in the little amount of places you can actually drop in the main base. Showtime scrambling to defend. We're going to go back to the Big Gabe cam. He seems to be the one initiating most of this action. Now we're watching the Terran. Targeting stalkers, but there's a lot more where that came from. Showtime starting to bank some money. A fusion core finishes, and the Liberators have begun production. Advanced ballistics, +3, +3. Heromarine still buying a surprising amount of time and space. But he has finally graduated to that near endgame level of tech. I guess the ultimate endgame would actually be battle cruisers, but that's not usually where we end up going. Battle cruisers and or nuclear missiles is the only real higher level of tech from here. And those are very niche scenarios.
We could use some help here.
Heromarine has 3 to 4 different prongs of this attack. It is the fancy fork of attacks coming through. A drop at the natural. Nothing to defend. EMP on the Nexus! No recall! A very premeditated decision. And he takes out the Nexus. It also takes down the shields. It doesn't hurt with that. Oh, and the drop at the top left! He's tearing them apart! There's some DTs in the mix, but he goes towards the main. And he already killed the Nexus in the top left. Heromarine with the 1-2 punch takes out the natural, hits one of the expansions. More Liberators on the way, 4 at a time. A handful of bio units. Honestly, he's kind of just freeing up supply for Liberators here. But Showtime strikes back. Storm drop on the SCVs. The boys will be sacrificed, but some of them will survive, and the planetary remains intact. Oh, it's not gonna burn today. Heromarine dropping an EMP on a... He's even getting... Well, Heromarines even getting the medevac boost upgrade. That decreases the cooldown, and when the medevac is not boosting, increases its base speed. It is called Rapid Reignition System, as we all know. Wait, is it what it's called still? There was a bug with that for a while. Medevac, go fast. And then sometimes go faster.
Mineral field.
Which I'm very excited that we're actually seeing it. 6 Liberators at a time, too. Showtime, despite being maxed out, somehow is on the defensive. He's building Void Rays to help deal with potentially an overwhelming Liberator count. He's going to need Tempest in the long run unless he can take a decisive engagement. Advanced Ballistics is complete. Half a dozen Liberators at a time. EMPs, drop it in the center. He gets 2.
Command center upgrade.
Meanwhile, the Void Ray just killed a double drop to the north. But Heromarine holding this position, and you see Showtime. Now he's the one who's getting bullied off this part of the map here. Those Liberators keep stepping forward, and Showtime has to tiptoe those very fancy, tall Colossus legs back. That's a whole lot of Liberators here. A Venn diagram of freedom. Now, Showtime still has plenty in the bank. He has a lot of army supply. He just doesn't have the unit composition to deal with. Heromarine has a bunch of bases as well. There's just a complete no-go zone. Heromarine has to be a little concerned about where the main army is. A great storm coming in from the north. The charge lots being isolated. Some EMPs dropped. The army on the left, but the Liberators have repositioned to deal with this. Showtime has been isolated from his base, and that's the rich Vespine base. I'm not sure if it's mined out or not. Liberators raining down. More stalkers coming through. A handful of bio underneath. I guess more than a handful, but this base almost killed by default. Showtime just denied engaging on an entire portion of the map. The probes. No, wait a second. There's no home for you to go back to. Disruptor still looking for opportunity. Showtime struggling. Let's go to the struggle cam. Back to Showtime's perspective. Where do you go from here? He's trying to come in from the back. Is the stalker count even high enough? He blinks in from behind. Heromarine hasn't really reacted to this yet, but he turns it around. EMPs drop. And a nice hit. Not nice enough. More EMPs. Reinforcement. He's tearing through everything. And now more Liberators siege up a little off-center. That's a bit of a mistake out of Heromarine, which means the Void Ray wasn't going to be countered here. There's just not that much more to deal with. The Disruptors he picks up, but not everything. There's still one Colossus, the ragtag band of survivors here. The Liberators will have to split away, and Showtime survives for now. And he even throughout this managed to reestablish that top left base, but his bank is gone. His middle base with that rich Vespine is eliminated. His unit composition is down to a shadow of what it once was. He's got 2 Disruptors, a Colossus. He's warping in some Templar. Oh, Disruptors kind of... But both players have been having issues with pathing around that area and finding units in kind of awkward scenarios as they rally them. But Heromarine has laid on the pressure. We saw from his side of things how many expansions he was building. A storm drop. The Liberator count is just too damn high. A stark contrast between this and the last match. Almost entirely, I think, credited to the great storm drop. Actually only kills 8 SCV. Storm drops always look scarier than they are. This isn't brutal. But the difference between this game and the last can be credited almost entirely to those Liberators. That's a planetary fortress. Showtime. He blinks in. He prays. He fires the disruptor shots and doesn't even look where they go, as he knows Heromarine's not going to take those hits. He's got to deal with it. He recalls a weird amount of units. And now Heromarine, he looks to see what's left over. Actually cleans that up. Showtime holding. But he does have that Stargate from earlier. Oh, Disruptors kind of just sliding. Ooh. A nice hit there. But where's the rest? The Liberators, every time he engages, don't even get close. There's just a demilitarized zone for the Protoss that the Liberators are enforcing from afar. The units being rallied through the liberation zones are having a terrible day. Showtime trying to hit from the back, but the Bioarmy is there to protect the rear guard. Liberators on the front. More reinforcements. Showtime tries to blink in between the freedom zones, but is there enough to break through? The Bioarmy is disjointed, disgruntled, and dismantled, but it's more than enough to devastate the Protoss. The Warp Prism is warping its stalkers underneath Blink and the Liberators and the Marauders. And Showtime holds, but at what cost? Also, what a defense. The choice to warp in under a single Liberator zone instead of trying to find a better place was just enough. He's still struggling in terms of supply, somehow keeping up 60+ probes and keeping up most of his bases. As Liberators, their biggest weakness is they can't shoot buildings. But let's go back to the other side. Heromarine. He's got half the map. He's feeling more than comfortable. He's got pretty much all the upgrades. He's still missing out on building armor and high-sec auto tracking. Not that, well, they can be game changers, but he has plenty of production. EMPs landing. He's got a whole lot of map control. He's going to hit the natural again. That base pretty much mined out, but there's still some production there, I guess. And anything he can do, even a Liberator protecting a new base. Looks like the drop is going towards the natural, and this will allow the Liberator at the top left to do damage. Anything to distract Showtime for a split second could make the difference. But Showtime deals with that Liberator. But Heromarine reacts to the Dark Templar as well.
Mineral field depleted.
There was I think that's an observer pinging. I don't know why Heromarine would be pinging that location. Still plenty of production. That's the main brunt of the army. Heromarine has a significant army supply advantage, but Showtime has scratched together a defense multiple times thus far. Can he do it one more? Because Heromarine is maxed out. Showtime is trying to get as close as he can. Disruptors fire through the liberation zones before they can complete. Stalkers blink forward. How many disruptors are there? Another shot. One very unlucky Marine. But the Liberators continue to leapfrog forward. There's more than enough to replace those he's losing. Still at 200 supply. Still at around 160 is Showtime. Oh, those are big hits. Those Stalkers blinked a little too far. Another Disruptor comes through. Another one from the north. A whole volley of shots across the board. But the Bio Army and the Liberators doing just as much damage. Great Storm's coming out. Curveball hits more charge lots than it hits Bio. And suddenly, Showtime is down to 80 supply. And he's down to match point. Liberation is at hand. Big Gabe lays it down. Both these players so evenly matched. And I love they both have a similar style of the constant distraction, like the bait and switch. Whenever given the opportunity, and Showtime didn't have much opportunity later on, but they'll do one little thing, like here's a small drop, and also here's a ranged Liberator you might not be ready for. Like just the little details, on top of the ridiculously scrappy micro. But two matches down. Only one to go. As this determines who moves on in IEM Katowice. And I would be remiss if I didn't take advantage of this match point opportunity for a quick advertisement. Thank you guys. If you could pause ad block, that would be awesome. I will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Winter. And did you know if you like and subscribe this video right now, it'll make you feel like you're supporting StarCraft 2 esports? Because if I get more money, then great things will happen. Make sure to tune in, like, and subscribe to more StarCraft 2 videos, specifically right here, right now, or sometime in the future. Either way, thank you, good luck, and have fun. Thank you guys for sticking around. Big Gabe has survived the disruptors, the wide variety of units, and now we will see if he can continue. And actually take on Showtime. Gimme game number 3. Just, like, watching Showtime in those fights, I wonder, it might be me just being a incompetent player, but there's so much happening so quickly. The fact that Showtime was able to live through some of those fights, he's just dodging through Liberator zones, warping in. At the same time, Heromarine has to deal with so much. There's disruptors thrown at him, stalkers blinking from behind, some storms, colossi. There's a lot of moving and unmoving parts that need to be managed. And if one player just took their hands off their keyboard and mouse for 1 second in either of those fights, they've immediately lost the game. That's just how it is.
SCV ready.
There's so much. We're on Triton. We're gonna go to the Showtime cam because he is less interested in giving us intense vertigo early on. So you might be wondering, like, why pro players will move their camera around, all of that. Will be like boxing probes or doing little bits of micro that don't seem to matter. Believe it or not, contrary to popular Silver League belief, it's not to raise their APM. In fact, moving your camera around doesn't actually raise your APM. But instead, it's like, imagine the first couple minutes of the game as a couple minutes before a football game. Now, I don't care if we're talking about freedom or non-freedom football. Like, is there any sort of warm-up, stretching, moving around a little bit? These players are playing at 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 actions per second. You don't want to be starting that out of nowhere.
Glory to the Dame.
It's a Stargate again. Showtime, despite losing last match at the Stargate opener, like, you can't attribute it to the Stargate. In fact, I think the Stargate did pretty well early on. It's just he was never able to really utilize it later. Probe scouting around. I think he's looking for... This is not an unpopular Hellion drop map. Showtime was doing something like this on Eternal Empire as well. Because one of the things you are very vulnerable to with it... What? Okay. So there's an Adept in the main of Heromarine. Oh. So there was a Widow Mine. He let the Adept attack the Widow Mine, but Heromarine reacted, burrowed the Widow Mine. But while he was microing at home, he lost the Reaper on the other side. So both players will lose their scouting unit. But what did... The Reaper did not actually see the Stargate, though. It for Heromarine, it seems to be implied. He's putting a Widow Mine in the... Well, you're probably not going to expect a Widow Mine here of locations. We're a little past the whole meta of, well, nobody expects a Widow Mine here. Hiding Widow Mines in creative ways. Most Protoss players won't fall for it nowadays, but that doesn't mean none ever will happen to fly over one. It got a little ridiculous when players were just putting them on the other side of the map. Alright. It's gonna be bio again.
Add-on complete.
I did not notice much mech during IEM Katowice. I mean, especially not against Protoss. It's never been a super popular build. I've only really seen TY using it in more than one gimmicky game against Protoss recently. But I do love to see it. But it's not Heromarine's cup of tea. He didn't name himself Hero Widowmine. Be a weird name. Okay. Oh, deja vu. We've just seen this micro before, but this time, well, actually, almost the exact same exchange. Will there be two Phoenixes that come in and harass the Viking again? Nearly the exact same thing has happened last game, but this time the Viking will live. There's only one Phoenix.
Additional supply depots required.
+1 infantry weapons. There's already a third command center. So this is Heromarine saying, this is my build. I don't really care what you're doing. And in Terran, they spend a lot of time building up. You can't just slap down a bunch of gateways. Even though they're kind of flexible in terms of things like add-ons, there's not much he could see out of Showtime that would be like, now I have to switch up my build to counter my opponent. No, like, I'm trying to think. I guess the only thing that would require or maybe imply he needed a different response would be some sort of crazy Stargate heavy play. Like if Showtime's like, screw it, I'm going Flux Veins. then maybe Heromarine would want to invest more in Widow Mines and less in tanks and Marauders.
Add-on
But
complete.
Showtime is not going Flux Veins, so...
Let's have a blast. SCV ready.
Heromarine has his third. And no matter... I think
Is under attack.
a lot of... It's low-hanging fruit to be like, well, this build or this style or even this race lost, so we shouldn't try to copy their strategies or improve. Heromarine is a player who, no matter if he wins or loses, you can take those builds to the ladder. It's not like Maru, for better or for worse. It's not like Maru where sometimes you're like, Maru has these either 20 or 200 IQ builds that come out, and if you try to emulate them, you're probably just going to end up hurting yourself. Heromarine,
Upgrade.
as we see here, almost
Research.
not scouting at all. He's saying, okay, I dealt with the Stargate, and now I'm doing my bio build. Whatever you might be doing, I'm doing my bio build. And it's going to leave him with a strong amount of units and a strong attack. And look at the supply. There's a single Colossus, and immediately... Well, okay, so that will be a different reaction out of Heromarine. He's not going to continue on this attack. He's going to look for secondary options.
Additional supply.
One Colossus not incredibly scary, but he might not. He might be afraid that Showtime is very close to a second one, or is even hiding a second one. And two Colossi are when, if you don't have either an overwhelming army or Vikings/tanks, and there are some Vikings and tanks, but not many, then that's when your Bio army has a bad day. Speaking of Bio armies having a bad day, the target fire on one Colossus, but Guardian Shield, there's no charge yet, which is the only reason Heromarine gonna even try to take this fight. He's gonna drop in the main. Meanwhile, a Viking's going to the natural. That lack of charge, a few seconds before Thermal Lance and charge finished. Heromarine was on the edge of disaster with that, to be honest. Meanwhile, a Viking in the natural kills 8-ish probes. He tries to target down more. And despite not having the army to take a decisive engagement, Heromarine, oh my god, the Hero Viking in the natural. Nobody's looking at it. Heromarine isn't looking at it. Showtime isn't. It looks like Showtime dealt with it. But the Viking in the natural got the brunt of 12 probes. And that actually puts Heromarine up by 12 workers. Huh. Funny how that works. Let's go over to the Showtime cam, who's still, once again, going to be playing defense. And, well, he wouldn't be nicknamed the Wall if he wasn't comfortable with that. Disruptors on the way. 3 Colossi seems to be that number, where you have enough. 3 Colossi is around the number where bio armies can't really fight you, unless they have a bunch of Vikings. And so, switching, but by that point, usually most Terrans will start really heavily producing Vikings, and Heromarine is doing just that. That's when Disruptors, the more direct, well, I guess, less directly counterable option, are the choice. They're actually a little cheaper as well. Just having varied forms of splash damage makes it exponentially more difficult for the Terran. This isn't the days of Heart of the Swarm where you'd build like 28 Vikings and off of 2 bases and then pull the boys. No. Though I do miss some of those times.
Consciousness awakened.
War Prism on the way. The War Prism, a very important tool. Okay, big drop coming in. Showtime moving to respond at his third. He's expecting another attack, because this isn't the entirety of Heromarines' army. Oh, the Twilight Council! He could have gotten it before Blink. He just barely didn't. Showtime preemptively and proactively out in front, but there's not that much to deal with this. Heromarine spots the Disruptors, but War Prism into the main. A Viking is already there to deal with it. A handful of charge lots make it out. A few Phoenixes are taken out that were chasing the Doom drop. There's a scramble across the board here. Heromarine going to clean up the Prism, and he takes a solid fight on both fronts. But at the same time, it's hard to tell. I'm not even sure if Showtime knows exactly how much damage he did on any part of it, because the medevacs were able to escape. But Showtime holds on to his 4th base. We're going to flip back to the biggest of Gabes, who's about to go on the two-pronged attack again. For better or for worse. Working in towards the third. Showtime has shown that he knows Heromarine's style, his tactics. He's dealt with it before. Showtime, no. Oh, Disruptor. Not going to finish on that Robo. Kind of an awkward scenario. Reinforcements piling in. Disruptor shots pounding through a lot of the bio. But Heromarine mostly able to retreat. Blink is done. A few Stalkers on the chase. He's going to consolidate his forces. Heromarine makes it to the high ground. He takes out a robotics facility. He maintains a solid amount of supply. A fusion core is complete, but no Liberators on the field yet. He's got +2/+2 finishing up. Showtime only at +2/+1. He's focused on the weapons upgrades this time, mostly for the Colossi. A beautiful spread from Heromarine, but he's involving his third command center in this. Fourth command center is done. Disruptor shots more exploratory. Oh, a Disruptor from the back. Another shot comes through, looking for... Oh, that's a big one. Another decent hit. Heromarine maintains a good supply, but Showtime is making up the gap. Advanced ballistics on the way. Liberators in production, but Showtime is already on his doorstep. The Disruptors are recharging. Heromarine hasn't taken a decisive engagement. There's still units in a medevac here. Not the biggest of concerns compared to actually microing this army. Some EMPs come through. More Disruptors. More splits. So far, so good. Good target fire. The Vikings not doing enough. Another hit. That one hits a bunch of Marauders. But even the fadeaway shot's not good enough to deter Heromarine. What is the... What? Okay. The command center's doing push-ups. The army... Showtime is using those Disruptors for all they're worth, and there's no Liberators to hold a good position here. Another fadeaway. That medevac is still a unit to it. You can tell how stressed these players are. Showtime is down 20 supply, but he knows he doesn't want to let Heromarine stabilize, because those ranged Liberators last game just carved out a victory. Their ability, when in high enough number, to drive back a Protoss ground army can almost not be overstated. But any mistakes here, while these Liberators are building up from Heromarine, he doesn't have any bio on the right side. I'm not sure if it's just charge lots over there. It is for now. There's the main army. He spots it. Liberator count is only 2 against 8 Disruptors. 4 Liberators at a time, though. Did he lose an engineering base somewhere in here? I'm not sure if Heromarines just working off the one, but he's just getting +3. It's +2/+2 for both sides. The planetary under attack. That's his 5th base, though. Not his 4th. Well, the curves right back in. Another shot. That one takes out some key units. Meanwhile, though, Showtime is engaging. There's nothing to defend at the 3rd. Heromarine is holding. He hasn't been able to put on any sort of counter-aggression for a while yet. But he's building up. Oh, he loads up a lot of somewhat bruised medevacs as well. The attack! The planetary's here. Disruptors could clear out the SCVs. Shot, complete airball. Planetary intact. Meanwhile, attack at the 3rd. The Doom Drop almost cut off by units that were pressuring the army in kind of a weird scenario. The Doom Drop in a fortuitous position. Heromarine maintains near 200 supply, but so does Showtime. Big Gabe is stabilizing. The Liberator count getting pretty healthy here. He spots the army rotating around. The Marine still only has 4 bases. He's still being besieged. But let's switch over to the Showtime cam. Who's got Dark Templar now? We're watching the Protoss. He's got 5 bases. That's most of what I was looking for. The DTs make it into the 3rd. More SCVs will die. Heromarine starting to dip. Meanwhile, an attack, though, towards the north. 1 Dark Templar. Gonna force a scan. Still an awkward amount of units. There's no Disruptors up there. I don't know if Heromarine... He's got the PTSD from him. Too many Disruptor hits means he's pre-splitting his units. And still, though, this counterattack, there's a Dark Templar in there. Oh my god, that's so many Disruptors. Showtime, the best defense is a good offense. That's what he's showing here. Last game, he didn't really play very aggressive with his Disruptors. He waited back. And that means you don't really... It's kind of like with Swarm Hosts, where you want to constantly be launching at your opponent off cooldown whenever possible. Heromarines' economy has been whittled down. It's still intact. It's okay for now. But he's essentially... Whoa, 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 whoa! He tries to just take out the command center with disruptors. He just launches everything. It doesn't quite do it, but that means he is on cooldown for now. But can Heromarine actually step out and take advantage of it? There's a drop to the left. There's a drop to the right. Showtime just used the recall a few seconds, like 30 seconds ago. He's still off cooldown, or on cooldown for quite a while. He has to retreat with almost everything, but he gets a command center. Incidentally, the Liberators will siege up. The Stalkers blink on top of the Bio Army. He's going to lose a lot of Stalkers for that. Showtime not taking the most cost-effective of engagements, but he did kill a command center, so that's something. DT Blink is on the way, so is Medevac Speed. Heromarine not able to put on the aggression he was in the previous match. Oh, another engagement. It really comes down to where are the disruptors. Showtime able to box out of most of his bases here. He's the one killing the bases of his opponent this time around. But Heromarine nearly maxed out. He has about a dozen less workers, which means his army supply is even bigger. The main army thrusting through the center of the map. The main command center more than likely up there. Disruptor forces Heromarine back. Where are the Liberators is the question. I'm sure Showtime's wondering as well. Oh, the Bio Army killed the top right! Heromarine still working through a single Colossus. EMPs on the Nexus, removing the shields and any chance of a recall. More EMPs hits the Colossus as well. Showtime getting caught. He hit most of his armies across the map. Probes are dying. Well, Warpin's almost a desperation move. Heromarine getting caught with some of his units. The Disruptors are showing up to the party. Oh, he fires a volley across the board! The broadside! So far, though, not finding the hits. Heromarine on the chase! 180 supply! Showtime is on his last Colossus and Stalker legs. The Nexus is gone. The Disruptor's whittled down. It's 130. The Nexus falls. Showtime's starting to lose key bases here. Heromarine will lose a lot of these units, and that'll even things out just a bit. But let's go to the Big Gabe cam, as he looks to lay down the finishing blow. The Liberators taking a key position. A Nexus is gone. But how much is at home to defend? The allocation of units is important. Having too little at home, and you can't recall Terran units. Pro tip. 17 SCVs go down. Heromarine starting to run out of mineral patches here. A couple Dark Templar taken out. And Heromarine getting back into his own base. Showtime start. He's losing his production. He's expanding to the top right. I don't know if Heromarine has looked at that center base. Meanwhile, are we just gonna stop mining? Are we done mining? Oh no, a few Liberators caught! The Planetary trying to hold. Pylons can be targeted here. Meanwhile, oh no. Something happened in the main. Suddenly, the Marines and Marauder count are significantly lower. Where there it had to be a disruptor. There's still Bio. Heromarine has gone from up 40-50 supply. He committed too much to the other side of the map, and with orbitals lifted, oh, that disruptor. I want to click on it. How many kills? 12 kills. A lot of those Marauders. And losing almost all of his SCVs. He's down to 24. Suddenly, Showtime. It almost feels like Heromarine kind of. He committed too much to the other side of the map. He may have overestimated how many units Showtime had and went for the base trade. Another great fight. Suddenly EMP is turning things around. A disruptor, target fire. And Heromarine still, he has the army supply. He's got 7 liberators. There's not that many stalkers. He's got to press forward, but he almost has no economy left. The liberators siege up. Disruptors will fire through. He's got a micro the bio around the sides. There's not that much bio left over, just the one liberator as well. There's precious few units left. Big Gabe down to single digits in Marines and Marauders. DTs, they get more and more valuable the lower and lower economy. You can't really be using scans, but you have to use scans. Heromarine stretched himself a little too thin on that counterattack. Showtime kept it together. He kept his priorities together. And now it comes down to the Liberators. Like, can the Liberators do it? He's gonna get outmaneuvered. There's no Marines and Marauders left, which means the Blink Stalkers will kill the rest. And Dimawa will move on. And he holds. He had the handling. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. I wanna go back to when Heromarine, because we gotta watch that from Showtime's side. We got the benefit of that first person perspective here. But a little further forward, when Heromarine goes up by 50-ish supply after a decisive fight where he really handles the disruptors well, Showtime starts to crumble. And he starts to bleed a whole lot of units. He lost a base. He's losing a bunch of warp-ins. And it's this fight where the Liberators, well, the Disruptors don't do nearly enough. Showtime down 60 supply. And that is army supply. But how does he handle these last few minutes? He brings the units back to clean this up. Still loses a lot of Stalkers for that. And then moves right back forward to try to take the top of the ramp. The Liberators, he sees so many Liberators move to the left. Now this is the call. And also Heromarine didn't scout. Either he didn't scout or didn't really worry about that center base. But Showtime just, well, Heromarine goes top left, Showtime goes bottom right. A Disruptor, oh, that's... Oh wait, that was the... Was that the Heroruptor? He snuck it back into the main. His ace in the hole. A few DTs warped in. And this is where it gets really, really tough. Where Showtime has to... He has to deal with... He has to realize, like, I have to do damage, but if I overcommit, I'm dead. I'm so very, very dead. Because Liberators and Bio units... he catches a few Liberators. Heromarine, not... If those have been sieged up on that base. So many little things. But this is the shot. This... Oh my god. It wasn't Marauders. It was Ghosts! Oh! He held on to it. Oh! I was wondering, like, what 12 kills could have made so much of a difference. Those were, well, quite a big hit. He clears out all the bases and holds the minimum supply back at home. And then from there... God, that was a game-winning move. a game-winning hit. And this base, I think this is the first time Heromarine sees this base. Or really acknowledge. He might, he might have known, but, the first time he really acknowledged there was still a mining base. Enough to warp in more units. And the aggressive defense. This time Showtime, oh my god, so hard to say. This time Showtime was able to keep Heromarine back, and he kept using the disruptors on cooldown, as opposed to the Eternal Empire game, where he had to use them defensively. He was on his side of the map most of the time. Now this is a smaller map, but that does factor in. Yes, we broke everything here. Showtime holds on. Heromarine struggles. His own high-powered aggression getting the better of him. And Showtime will move on in IEM Katowice. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown. I hope you enjoyed the first-person perspective of the players, which I think is incredibly intense and really shows how much is going on. When you could try to boil it down, and I'm sure plenty of people will, either in Twitch chat or YouTube comments too, well, he made this unit, therefore he won, or he played this race, therefore he won. I think it shows a lot goes into both sides of the story. And it's more fun for me. You learn something every time. But if you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and all of those other, ring the bell, share with your mom's Facebook group or something. Thank you for watching. Good luck and have fun.